asked me, he's coming from a Litvish background, and he wants to become chasidish. I'm not going to say which chasidus, because, each chasidus has its, people fit in different places. There are definitely ones that, that are claiming and are fake, absolutely. There are ones that have certain misguided things. There are ones that, stam, like any group, just like any group by Litvish or Sephardim that have certain things that, need to be fixed. Regular, things, just like everybody else has. And Hasidus is definitely in a good position to fix things in a much quicker pace, if the Rebbe so chooses. And of course they also have to realize it, you understand? They have to realize it and then decide to do it. Now, so this person is telling me that he's interested in a certain Hasidus, and it wasn't any of those red flags. There's very few, but there are. It wasn't that, and he told me that his father and mother are, usually the mothers are even stronger, but fathers today, all a bunch of wimps. Shidduchim, everything. Honey, the women are doing everything, controlling everything. The father just, sits there and learns, so to speak. And, complete wimps. A man has to be, that he's supposed to be the decision maker. He's supposed to have that ability. If you don't have it, you don't have it, If you didn't acquire it, or if you didn't hone it, and your ability is that of a 10-year-old, so then, and your wife is, she has been in the, she went, she's worked, she's done stuff, and so you're, until you could be in charge, you gotta work, you gotta work on yourself, but a man, that's one of the, in a marriage, that's one of the abilities of a man, and he's supposed to provide that for his wife, you understand? So if he can't, he can't. If his wife is way better than him, then that's what it is, you understand? At the same time, don't disrespect your man, and you understand? The same thing as if it was an ability of a woman and she didn't have it and you had to hold it. Don't disrespect her for the fact that she doesn't have it. But there is a kind way to, each one to acquire their abilities, and it's very important. So that this is, so getting back to the question, so he's asking me his parents are highly against it, and he's still young, he's very young, he's around his 20s, so I'm not talking about before mid-20s, in his early 20s, maybe 20, could be he's 20, and just like we talked about in the show before, how men are afraid to approach a girl before marriage. I'm talking about approaching just to play around with her. No, we're talking about serious. You think, oh, I like her. Let's get to know each other. Let's see if if we're good chemistry together. You understand? If we're in line. It's how we think of life, that we both have a similar view. You understand? Very important. If you don't have, then you're constantly arguing over things. You understand? So he tells me. So he's having that fear of approaching, like we talked about. I don't want to get into it again. I said it. I said it, and it's good for people. It's out there, and people could listen to it. So what's it? So he's very scared, and he ended up not becoming because of the fear of his parents. They were oh yeah, we were saying, so the father still are all wussies. All of a sudden, when it comes to him becoming chasidish, all of a sudden he grows a backbone. You understand? So you just see, like, if a child went off the derech, would you put all that energy to get, like, the child, what he's fearing is, like, excommunication, because they're so against it. Now, I don't think they're going to do it, and similarly, when people, afraid to approach a woman, ask her out, let's go, let's, to find out if, ask her out on a coffee date, ask her out on a date, the fear is tremendous, and yes, things could happen, but I think you should just still do it because, first of all, what other choice do you have? Second, so you just have to have emunah and Hashem, and Hashem will work out the rest. That's called emunah. When you have no choice, you still do what needs to be done, and you trust in Hashem because you're doing literally all you can do. You understand? So in this case, so I think parents, even though they're showing such things, and of course you always have, 1 in 100 who are crazy, but I think overall I don't think that they would actually excommunicate, and someone who is not a parent, a rabbi or rebbitzin, they might, because you're not their child, they might, really hurt someone. But I don't think a parent would do that. You understand? I think there's limits. So that's just my personal opinion. Okay, so this person is, really nervous about what's going to be. So what do you say to him? Not so easy. So first of all, it didn't end up happening. As far as I know, I saw him years later. He's still Litvish, probably married, and maybe not. I don't know. But we hope the best. So I told him. So what do you tell someone like that? Like, what do you do? What do you do? Like, it's very difficult, you understand? They're trying to project to you that there's something wrong, like it's usher, right? Even though you have these, we've talked about it. I don't know if I said it exactly, but I definitely, said it, basically saying it. But unfortunately, people today are not so bright and very brainwashed. So sometimes you just have to say things directly, and because you have to save whoever you can save. You understand? There's if someone's good, they'll be saved. You just have no choice. You have to save whoever you could save. Like I heard Rav Mizrahi says, he thinks that, if you're, he said, like Rav Yosef, he said, imagine if he smacked every Sephardi that came in. Sephardim sometimes can feel very comfortable that they're Jew and not keeping Judaism. They feel very comfortable doing that. And Rav Mizrahi was a big Makar. He said, if Rav Yosef would have slapped, I'm not talking about slapping on, but slapped each Sephardi that came to visit him, because the Sephardim, they do really respect the Chacham. They do really respect the Chacham. So he said if he would have smacked everybody that came to meet him, so 50% would go off, but 50% would the Chacham smacked him, he's going to know that he needs to change. You understand? So this is what he said. I'm not going to tell people what to, think exactly, but this is what he said. It's not my own words. But I definitely agree with what he's saying. the Talmidei Chacham have to realize their place, and they have to start taking up responsibility. There's no question Rav Yosef did tremendous, you understand? But sometimes we miss out, like, key points. Literally, Rav Yosef would be flying 20 hours to be Makar people, you understand? Sleeping nothing, But sometimes you forget that if you're a Svardi Chacham, everybody looks up to you. So if someone comes into you that's not from and you hit every single one of them, I'm not talking about violently, we're talking about give a hit, It's basically like a tap, but it's a hit that you're showing that you're hitting. You understand? You go like this. You understand? Then half of them, probably maybe even more, but at least half, would have become from. You understand? So sometimes you miss, simple things that you could do that you don't even realize, right? And I'm sure because, Svardim do have, they're very connected to Yiddishkeit, even when they're not keeping anything, you understand? They feel connected. So I'm sure there would be a lot of Svardim that know that they would come to Rav Yosef to get the hit, to get them to become from, you understand? I'm sure that would happen also. So this is, sometimes, that's why it's important to allow other people to speak to you, not to be blocked by your gabayim. You understand? You have to make it that any person, it doesn't have to be they can come to you all the time, but there should be a time, once a week, once a month, depending on who you are, every day, depending on who you are, that anybody could come and there's no way to stop it. The people could come and speak. If you're a leader, people need to be able to get to you and tell you, something for themselves, something they think about the chasidish, something they think that you could do, whatever it is, they need to be able to approach. If they can't, then you're not a leader. You understand? You're not a leader. So, sometimes you might have a change, like Moshe Rabbeinu, he had like a whole shashel. So, however, if you went there and you think that didn't suffice, then you are allowed to go to the next. You understand? It all depends. A lot of the structure depends on how much people you have that you're that you're guiding, that you're the leader, and at the same time, if someone goes to one of the rings below, one of the chains below, and they answered, and the person answering thinks that they did it well, but you don't think it's you think you need to talk to the next person up, and it could keep going up and up, then you're allowed to go to the next person. You don't have to have permission to go to the next person. You understand? Very, very important. Very, very important. So getting back to this. So what I was going to say is that you have a lot of Ashkenazi girls that some actually do become skinny, others they just feel it's impossible, and they feel it's impossible to lose weight. And most chasidish bachrim, they'll take a fat girl. You understand? Because there's such a high level of shmir sinayim, that it's unreal that just the fact that she's a girl, they'll take anything. You understand? Not because they don't understand what it means, a pretty girl. They don't have that musig, because they're watching their eyes all the time. You understand? So it would be a good thing if if they would marry. If they would marry, they could marry these chasidish boys. You understand? And then they could, and they could be, and they could be happy. You understand? But since the system so brainwashes the Beis Yaakovs, the Mechons, basically any Litvish girls' school brainwashes them that Hasidim are off the limits and all these different reasons. You understand? They're not Litvish is the main thing. You understand? They're not Litvish, so you can't. You have to keep within your group, and doesn't say that in Yiddishkeit if the person, right? There's no such thing, especially when there's different from groups. You could marry one from either group you want. There's no such. Nothing exists in Yiddishkeit that tells you you're not allowed to on any level. You understand? But they're taught, and just the atmosphere around in the school and the atmosphere while they're still living amongst the Litvish is just so strong. Even little Litvish groups within chasidish towns like Muncie have these little Litvish enclaves. You understand? Even those I don't know what it is, but Litvish has this ability of brainwash that is, it's so deep that you think it's you. You're like, no, Litvish never did it. That's their opinion. You understand? They chose that, and you have to be very brilliant to see how the brainwash works by Litvish. It's unimaginable. It's so deep. And I say this because I do care. Litvish is, if they just fix a few things, there's so much good there. But Litvish has this thing about them that they always have to self-destruct. I don't know what it is. So Hasidim, of course, there are these quirks, but over time things get better. You understand? Hasidim are not saying that everything's perfect. You understand? But they're legitimately moving forward. Things are spiritually, financially, family-wise, things move forward. And yes, there could be setbacks. However, Hasidus in and of itself is a movement that moves forward. Litvish is a movement that has tremendous power. However, they somehow always want to self-destruct. They get into the Shita, into this ideology, and they just can't get out of it. I do know what it is, but it's very complex to explain. So I'm not going to get into it. But just to understand, this is a serious problem by Litvish. And it's a problem that's from up down. You understand? Hasidus sometimes has issues, but usually it's from down up. But Litvish have it from the top down. That the leader somehow gets into his head something, and they just ruin it for everybody. The Litvish experience, you understand, they're very kind people, very nice people, but there's few false ideologies that they're claiming is Torah, which is a person's own ideas. You're allowed to have your own ideas, but you can't tell people to do something that is not part of Judaism. You could do that yourself, you understand, but it's not part of Judaism. You don't have a right to push your own ideas onto other people. And it's, so, and just think about it. Hasidim, that now they began, ready for many years, to send they look up to the Litvish schools, which they learning wise, they have the Ian. It's, if you want to learn Ian, it's a very good place to go, but the ideology is rotten. So what happens is a Rebbe wants to get, he wants to be looked at as chashuv. He sends his children to Brisk, to Mir, to BMG, to big lit, to what's that place? Gets a different big Litvish schools and Litvish yeshivas, or they said, and they get poisoned, and these are the future rebbes in Hasidus, and many regular Hasidim are going there, and and they're getting poisoned. They're getting poisoned. And what's happened, and now we've talked about it, that even, and this is what's degrading. Hasidus used to be, that it rises. Now, since it has inculcated, it has gone to Litvish yeshivas, and there's something about it. You go there, you get brainwashed. There's no question about it. You get brainwashed into the good things, and you get brainwashed into the bad things as well. It's not like there's 100 bad things, but there's a few, and that sort of permeates, goes into everything, and makes everything get rotten. And the thing is, it's so intelligently done that, like we said before, you're like, no, that's what he holds or she holds. You're like, but why does she think that? Because of what you did, how you spoke, how the atmosphere was. You understand? You implied, very literature always, I never said it, you understand? But you implied it. The atmosphere told me to do this, you understand? When being in that atmosphere. So this is, and it's getting into, it has literally, I think, 70% gotten into Chassidus, and we have still 30% left, which is bigger than any other group in health-wise. Any other group is ranging between 1 and 5, 1 and 10. You understand? This is the Hasidim have to. It's true that Eon-wise, they're very good, but life-wise, Yiddishkeit-wise, they're not, and that's more important. And that was always the ideology of Hasidus. The point was not to create Gedolim. The point was to maximize that person. And for most people, it's not to be a Rebbe. It's to be a Chassid of a Rebbe. And therefore, they didn't push everybody to be Rebbes. They pushed people to maximize their abilities. And for some people, it's doing this. For some people, it's doing that. You understand? Different things. You all have to do things in a healthy way. Litvish sort of just like it's like a bull, just burges in and just says, this is the shita, they just decide that this is Yiddishkeit. It doesn't make a difference any worries that a parent or the person themselves might have, you understand? And the big Gedalim, they'll just push it off their mind because they think it's Yiddishkeit. In their mind, that's what Yiddishkeit is, and therefore they can't ask questions. To ask questions, to do differently, is to do a sin in their mind. And that's how they're viewing it, even though it has nothing to do with that. So it's very serious. It's very serious. Yes, so let's get back to one, one thing, each thing at its time. So you have, again, these Litvish girls we were speaking about before, they can have happy, good lives if they just married a Chassid. Now, what's interesting is the few that actually do marry Chassidim, you understand that actually break out, and usually they're divorced and they never went on a date for many years. Those type of girls, they marry from the wrong group. For some, like a girl that is messed up is like no way to fix it. She just somehow keeps on making the same mistakes. And since she's Litvish, and that ideology has certain flaws in it that is so destructive. Which Litvish is what we said is like a self-destructive system. The Litvish girls become self-destructive people. They self-destruct themselves, and it's like, it's like you vote for Democrats, you sort of get the ideologies of Democrats. You don't get it. You're not thinking like them, but you're sort of coming out with the same outcome, just through a different venue, but it's the same outcome. You understand? For instance, Democrats are like, women's rights. So what does that mean? That a woman's nothing. The only what makes her special is that she could do everything a man could do, right? So therefore, it's women working, and the idea of being a mother is not important. You understand? In the way these people think. You understand? So now you go to the Litvish world, the ideology of Koilo, which originates from Litvish. That's who was, Reb Aaron was the one that bring it out. I don't think that what's happening today is what Reb Aaron wanted, but it originates from him. Of course, there was little things before. We're talking about who made the movement today, what it is. It all started from Reb Aaron. And so Kyle says the women go to work and the men learn. So basically the men learn, they're near the house, they sort of, to a certain extent, they become the women and the girls become the men. That's that ideology, you understand? So they're having the same results, but from two, they're having very similar results, but from two completely different ways. The Democrats are having it straight from the Satan, and the Litvish are having it that the Satan, they're being tricked, but they actually are trying to be good. It's different, you understand? They're being tricked by the Satan, but they're actually trying to be good. So this is what's, like, I was a Litvish girl that was divorced, and I had a very nice person who was also Litvish, who was also divorced. So it wasn't even chasidish, you understand? But he didn't have any children. She did. So just think about it, And, I know this family very well, and I suggested a shidduch, and they completely, there's one thing like someone respects, and there's another thing like who are you? You understand? Like, I'll smile to you, I'll be nice to you, but when it comes to, even when you're like a simple thing like this, something you just see their complete disrespect for you. You understand? Which that's their choice. You understand? And now you realize that everything that they were showing you before was all fake, because how could you? The only answer is everything else was pretend. You can't, like, all of a sudden, have such, disregard for what for my suggestion. You understand? And at the same time, hold me in high regard. It's impossible. So it was all fake. You understand? There are some people that sometimes they're not so nice, they're a bit nasty, but when you actually suggest something, they actually listen. So you understand? You understand what's happening here? A bit crazy if you think about it. So this is what happened. And Uh, and who does she end up marrying? A chassidus that, in my opinion, is a cult. That's who she ends up marrying. So she like, not only did I have a Litvish guy, because I always try to accommodate, you understand. I understand that I'm not, if I find a chasidish guy, and I think that's best, then I'll suggest that. But I found a Litvish guy that I thought would work very well. And and she didn't take it, and then a year and a half later, she marries a Hasidish guy. And I don't get involved unless someone asks me. Unless they ask. I'm not gonna. If I think something isn't right, I'm not gonna say anything unless they ask. You understand? I'm a person that I know. I'm very respectful of someone else's place, and I'm not going to get involved in something unless I'm asked. You understand? Even though that person is hurting themselves, unfortunately in life. First of all, because nothing would happen. It would only be like first of all, the person doesn't ask, so that's it. That people are allowed to make bad decisions and hurt themselves. You understand? That is a right that a human being has, and I respect a human being's rights. Now, so that's first of all. Second of all, just think about there's only two outcomes. She doesn't marry him, and now she blames you for being single, because if she thought that I was intelligent and had her interests best in mind, and like that, so now when she doesn't marry him, she doesn't think bad about him, because she knows that she trusts my opinion, you understand? But she doesn't, you understand? So now she'll think bad about me. If they do get married, she'll still get angry at you, just because women just get angry, If you had anything to do with it, they'll get angry at you. Even though you still got married, you understand? She didn't do what you said, but since you were involved and now she got divorced, you sort of go into that blame. That's what happens. Men, it's a bit sometimes easier, even by men. I still go to the first thing. I respect the person's right to hurt themselves. They could cause good, they could choose to cause hurt. It's their decision, you understand? But men, sometimes you have more of a ability to approach and say, you could, there's more of an ability to request if you could, but if you could maybe if they would be okay with you telling something that's on your heart. But for women, it's just dangerous to do that. So this is what transpired, and they got married, and as far as I know, they're still married, but they're not happily married. But it's not it's like that scenario. It's not so bad that you should get divorced, but it's not really so good that you would have done it to begin with. You understand? It's like that type of scenario. So that's what happened, and you understand. So that was a case that I was suggesting something. Look, you have to understand, like, what I've seen, is you really have, they just get into the they just self-destruct. You understand? A woman that went bad or was brought up bad, there's the amount of money you'll need to spend to maybe fix, very hard. Men, it's easier. course, it shouldn't be done to any of them, and that's why I give the shiurim to bring out the truth, so we could save whoever we could save. You understand? I don't think, hopefully, it should be a huge success. But my point is to save whoever we could save. That's what I'm here for. So we need to disconnect from this falsehood and open up a real frum community, but that's frum and balanced. You learn, you work, you spend time with your kids, you spend time with your spouse. A real frum community. You understand? So this idea of extremism, of doing just one thing, only learning, only working, you understand? Which there really isn't. The only thing is just only learning. You understand? Everything else is pushed to the side. There's so many things that you need to acquire to be a good husband, to be a good wife, to be a good father, to be a good mother, to be a good human being, to be a pleasant person to be around. It's just things that they don't care about. You understand? It's just learning. They take the learning and they go against what learning is all about. The point of learning is that you become a living Sefer Torah, that you live in the Torah ways, and that's also considered learning. You understand? It's even a greater level, but at the same time you also have to learn, because there's so much more that you could know, but you need to actually, physically learn the Torah to know it. So it never ends. You understand? There's always these deeper levels. You understand? And it's a balance between the two. Learning, becoming the learning more, becoming the learning. You understand? This whole idea of pilpul, is something that, of course, it's an ability that a person needs to learn how to do, to go be'in into something. But to go be'in into something and not come out with halacha psuka, you understand, with the actual law which you should do, without coming out clearly with the law you should do, is disrespecting Torah. You understand? You're literally right before the chamber of truth, knowing exactly now what you should do, and you stop before it. That means you're just playing around with the Torah. You don't take it seriously. So there's no such thing as learning be'in and not coming to halacha l'maisa. It just doesn't exist. That is that you're playing around with the Torah. You don't take it seriously. Now getting back to this boy. Did we say what the... Oh yeah, so if the girls first would marry... So you have a lot of girls that they're not a 10 out of 10. Some of them are far from it. And a chasidish boy would... To him, it's a 10 out of 10. You understand? But they won't marry that chasidish boy. They first need to be divorced and single for many years to maybe even think about dating a chasidish boy. And because of this, they don't get married. You understand? Again, I'm just a straight shooter, I do feel for the people that, people that get, they want everything to be said in such a way that you can never pinpoint it, so no one's feelings should get hurt. But at the same time, more people are getting hurt by not knowing the truth. Let's at least save whoever we can from having these tragedies happen to them, from them self-imposing these tragedies and thinking that those thoughts that they're having is them, when it's not actually them. You understand? It's someone else who has done a deep brainwash on your mind. So that's what I'm here for. That's what I'm here for. So okay. So I'm of the opinion, and I believe that's the Torah opinion. And if you think it's otherwise, you could prove it to me. But as far as my research is, and I do know the Litvish and each group how they think you should only marry their group. I've been there. I know what they're thinking, and from what I've learned, first of all, it's just logical sense. But I've looked if there's any real proof to what they're saying, and there isn't. Nothing of really any substance, and therefore I do believe that you should not limit yourself to your group. A preference, of course, you can have a preference, but if someone says they have a great guy, and that great guy or a great girl happens to be Sephardi, Ashkenaz, or Chasidish, and you're from one other group, I'm totally for being completely open, dating the person. Right? If you have two people, right? They say we have two suggestions for you. You're Litvish. I have two suggestions. Two guys I think are good for you. One is Litvish, one is Hasidish. Both of them I think is good for you. And the person asks, who do you want? Okay, so usually a Litvish girl will say, oh, she has a preference to be Litvish. And in rare occasions, you have a Litvish girl that actually wants to marry a Chassid. You understand? You give them that opinion, but if someone comes to you and they only have one, then to say no, I believe that you are trying to control God. You don't care what God, what Hashem thinks. Hashem has to run according, the way you think is God has to run according to my pendulum, according to my will. And you don't have a right, and he doesn't have a right. He needs to do what I want, otherwise I'm just not going to do it. That's really what you're saying. And not only that, you're hurting yourself, you understand? Now, getting back to this boy that was, he wanted to become chasidish. So later he didn't. So from my understanding, it didn't happen, but that's as far as I know. So what do you do? So first of all, right, we said before that even if they're putting up such a strong front, I do not believe that if you did it, they would actually, all those things that you're worried are going to happen, that they're actually going to happen. You understand? Because you're their son, you're their daughter, you understand? I don't think it's going to happen. Right? That's right. Let's say the girl gets in, she wants to marry a Hasidish boy, or a girl gets in mind she wants to marry a Hasidish girl wants to marry a Litvish boy, right? That happens very often. And the parents could be all, but if you do it, it's like a rubber tiger, you understand? I don't think that parents will, there will be any real lasting consequences, you understand? If any, it's just that fear that it's like women when they attack, when they want to get their way, when they say something, they make it seem like they're going to do anything to do it, to get it, and therefore you're afraid to argue with them or to think differently, but really they won't do anything. So, and a lot of things, lots of times there's this big fear, but if you actually did it, certain things is a bit more high chance, but the possibility of something happening is 25 or less. You understand? You have a 75% clear. So you got to not just have your emotions. Your emotions are there to let you to think about something, but don't get completely controlled by the emotions. In fact, don't be controlled. Let them. They're there to set off a bell, but don't let that bell control you. You now got to think logically. What are the chances? What is the possibility? And work like that, and many cases, even if it's 50-50, you still have no chance because you need to get married. You understand? It's like, you understand? So, they think bad that you're going out to work, but as a man, you need to make money. You understand? If you're not a man. You understand? There's no choice there. You understand? So that's that. So that's my suggestion. If a person, getting back to this boy, you got to explain to him. You have to be clear on why he wants to do it. Is it just because he got some schnapps, or is it that he really connects to chassidus? You understand? If it's something real and deep, then he should slowly go in that path. There could be scenarios that you do it all at once. You need to have someone that his mind, a Talmud Chacham, that his mind has a wideness, his mind is wide and could guide you. If you don't have anybody, you're just yourself, you got to do the best yourself. But generally, the general answer is that you do it slowly. You don't just pop it all at once, right? Just like someone that finds out about Judaism, and now he comes to Ar Sameach, or he goes to Ura, or he goes to Shayashiv, or he goes to by the Kaisel, there's the there's the Aish. You understand? You don't just put on the black hat and black suit right away and the white shirt. Do it slowly. First you start wearing a white shirt, and you start wearing your black pants, and then later on you start putting on a jacket, and later on you start putting on a hat. Right? Slowly. You don't jump the gun. Now, could there be scenarios that you need to? Absolutely, but I'm just saying in general. That's the approach. And with big changes in life, you need to take it. You need to give yourself time to inculcate. And that's for most people. That's the way most people need to work. And that would be my suggestion to this boy. If someone asked me, that would be, in this scenario, you listen. If you you give. You shouldn't be someone that just gives advice freely. You have to see that the person is really sincere and wants advice from you, not just advice in general, but from you. Because you only have X amount of inner strength, and you can't just waste it. You just waste it. So that's my suggestion on how, we talked about a lot of things, but the core of how we began is, it actually happened to me. But if someone asks you, the main thing is, if someone asks you that they want to become chasidish, this would be my answer. It has to be that you really feel it deeply. It's something deep, and you need to take it slow. I love you, and Hashem loves you more.